11 black actors who hid they were gay until the day they died. Imagine reaching the pinnacle of Hollywood fame, only to realize you are a prisoner of your own success. For these 11 icons, every standing ovation was a bittersweet reminder of the man they had to hide. They weren't just fighting for roles, they were fighting to keep their very souls a secret in a world that demanded a mask. At Black Excellence Legends, we are stripping away that mask to honor the truth they carried to their graves. Is a legacy built on a lie truly a legacy? Hit that subscribe button now and tell us, was their silence a sacrifice or a tragedy? Alvin Ailey. Alvin Ailey was a transformative force in American culture, an artist who translated the profound struggles and spiritual triumphs of the Black experience into a universal language of movement. Born during the Great Depression in Rogers, Texas, Ailey's early life was shaped by the rhythmic vitality of the Southern Baptist Church and the harsh realities of segregation. These blood memories eventually became the cornerstone of his creative output. While the world predominantly celebrates him as a visionary choreographer and the founder of the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater, his early career was marked by significant contributions as a Broadway actor and dancer, appearing in notable productions like House of Flowers. Despite his towering public persona and the global acclaim of masterpieces like Revelations, Ailey inhabited a private world characterized by profound isolation. As a Black man navigating the mid-20th century, he was already fighting a relentless battle against systemic racism. Adding the label of gay would have been an invitation to professional and social annihilation. During this era, Hollywood and the performing arts demanded a specific brand of stoic masculinity from Black male icons. Consequently, Ailey maintained a rigorous separation between his public identity and his romantic life. He funneled his repressed desires and the pain of his hidden identity into his choreography, creating works that explored themes of yearning rejection and ultimate redemption. The psychological toll of this double life was immense. Friends and biographers later noted that Ailey's silence wasn't born of a lack of pride, but rather a strategic necessity for survival. He feared that public knowledge of his sexuality would overshadow his artistic achievements or weaponize his identity against the company he fought so hard to establish. This internal conflict often manifested in bouts of depression and health struggles. When he passed away in 1989 at age 58 due to AIDS-related complications, the official cause of death was initially listed as terminal blood dyscrasia to protect his privacy and his mother's feelings. It was only posthumously that the full spectrum of his humanity was revealed. Alvin Ailey didn't just move bodies, he moved the world even while his own heart remained a guarded secret. Bayard Rustin. Bayard Rustin stands as one of the most brilliant political strategists in American history, yet his identity as a performer is frequently eclipsed by his civil rights legacy. Long before he organized the 1963 March on Washington, Rustin was a gifted tenor and an aspiring actor who utilized the stage as a sanctuary for expression. In the 1930s, he performed alongside legends like Paul Robeson in the Broadway musical John Henry, and he even recorded an album of Elizabethan songs and spirituals. For Rustin, art was not merely a hobby, it was a vehicle for the poise and oratorical command that would later define his activism. However, his life was a constant tightrope walk between his undeniable talent and the taboo of his private reality. As a gay man during a period when homosexuality was both criminalized and pathologized, Rustin faced a level of vulnerability that few could withstand. In the high-stakes arena of social reform and public performance, he was acutely aware that his sexuality was a weapon his enemies could use to dismantle the entire movement. Consequently, while Rustin lived with a degree of internal authenticity that was revolutionary for the time, he was forced to keep his romantic life out of the public eye to protect the causes he championed. He accepted a role in the shadows of the leaders he advised, such as Martin Luther King Jr., knowing that his open secret could trigger a scandal that might derail the fight for racial equality. The burden of this strategic concealment was a profound sacrifice of his own narrative. In 1953, he was arrested on a morals charge in Pasadena, an event that was weaponized by political rivals to force his resignation from key organizations. Despite these setbacks, Rustin's resilience remained unshakable. He continued to influence American policy and culture from behind the scenes, never seeking the spotlight that his charisma deserved. When he passed away in 1987 at the age of 75, he was remembered as a master organizer, but the full truth of his struggle as a gay man in the arts and politics remained largely uncelebrated until decades later. Bayard Rustin was a man who performed on the world stage with immense dignity, even as society demanded he hide the very heart that beat for justice. Juano Hernandez. Juano Hernandez was a formidable trailblazer who dismantled racial caricatures long before the civil rights movement gained its national momentum. An Afro-Puerto Rican actor of immense gravitas, Hernandez rose from the world of circus performance and radio to become one of the most respected dramatic forces in Hollywood. His breakthrough in the 1949 film Intruder in the Dust was a watershed moment. He portrayed Lucas Beauchamp, a proud black landowner who refuses to act subserviently even when facing a lynch mob. This performance earned him a Golden Globe nomination and established him as a master of nuanced intellectual strength. Yet beneath this veneer of commanding authority, Hernandez navigated a perilous social landscape where his true self had to remain invisible. During the mid-20th century, a black actor's survival depended on appearing non-threatening to the prevailing status quo. For Hernandez, being gay added a secondary layer of existential risk. The Hays Code and the rigid social mores of the time dictated that any hint of non-conforming sexuality would result in immediate blacklisting. Consequently, he curated a public persona of intense professional focus and extreme privacy. He avoided the Hollywood social circuit, preferring a quiet life that kept his romantic inclinations far from the predatory tabloids of the era. By shrouding his personal life in mystery, he ensured that the focus remained on his groundbreaking portrayals of black dignity, effectively sacrificing his personal transparency to protect his professional platform. The emotional tax of this lifelong concealment was a burden Hernandez bore until his final curtain call. He operated in an industry that celebrated his talent while simultaneously denying him the right to exist authentically. While his contemporaries might have sought refuge in the burgeoning gay underground of New York or Paris, Hernandez largely remained a figure of solitary dignity. When he passed away in 1970 at the age of 74, his obituaries hailed him as a pioneer who opened doors for future generations of black actors like Sidney Poitier. However, the door to his own heart remained locked to the public. Juano Hernandez's legacy is one of unparalleled courage. He forced the world to look at the black face with respect, even as he was forced to hide the soul that lived behind the mask. Geoffrey Holder. Geoffrey Holder was a literal and figurative giant whose influence spanned the worlds of acting, choreography, painting, and costume design. Standing at a commanding 6'6" with a resonant, molasses-thick baritone voice, the Trinidadian-born artist became a household name through his iconic Uncola commercials and his chilling portrayal of Baron Samedi in the James Bond classic Live and Let Die. His artistry was defined by an explosion of color and Caribbean vitality, most notably seen in his direction and costume design for the original Broadway production of The Wiz, which earned him 2 Tony Awards. Despite his exuberant public persona, Holder was a master of the open secret, navigating a complex era where his flamboyant aesthetic was celebrated as artistic flair rather than a statement of identity. In the rigid social hierarchy of 20th century entertainment, Holder occupied a unique niche. He was married to the legendary dancer Carmen de Lavallade for nearly 6 decades, a union that was both a professional powerhouse and a deep personal bond. However, within the artistic circles of New York and Paris, it was understood that Holder's identity was far more fluid than the traditional heteronormative scripts of the time allowed. For a black man in America, the intersection of race and non-conforming sexuality was a dangerous crossroads. Holder strategically used his larger-than-life theatricality as a protective shield. By leaning into a persona that was exotic, eccentric, and brilliantly creative, he was able to live with a degree of freedom that a more conventional actor would have been denied, provided he never officially crossed the line of public admission. This careful balancing act allowed Holder to remain a beloved figure in mainstream America while maintaining his integrity within his private creative sanctuary. He focused his energy on elevating black aesthetics to the highest levels of high art, ensuring that the world saw the beauty, intellect, and sophistication of the African diaspora. When he passed away in 2014 at the age of 84 due to complications from pneumonia, the tributes focused on his indomitable spirit and vibrant creativity. While he never felt the need to label himself for the public's comfort, his life remains a testament to the resilience of Black queer artists who used their brilliance to carve out space in a world that wasn't yet ready to see them in full. Geoffrey Holder didn't just walk through life, he danced through it, leaving a trail of glitter and gravity that still inspires today. Tommy Lane. Tommy Lane was a definitive fixture of 1970s action cinema, an actor whose physical intensity and gritty charisma made him indispensable to the blaxploitation genre and the James Bond franchise. Best remembered as the formidable assassin Adam in Live and Let Die, and for his relentless performance in Shaft Lane, specialized in portraying men of extreme toughness and unwavering resolve. In an industry that frequently marginalized Black talent, Lane carved out a niche by embodying a specific brand of urban masculinity, a persona that was as much a professional requirement as it was a cinematic choice. However, behind this facade of the hard-boiled enforcer lay a personal truth that Lane felt compelled to shield from the world until his final days. For a Black actor rising to prominence in the late 20th century, the stakes of identity were exceptionally high. The roles available to men like Lane were strictly defined by their perceived strength and heteronormative virility. During this era, any deviation from the hyper-masculine mold was viewed by studios and audiences alike as a liability, particularly for Black actors who were already struggling against systemic racial bias. To be openly gay would have been a direct collision with the very roles that sustained his career. Consequently, Lane meticulously managed his public image, ensuring that his personal life remained a void in the eyes of the media. He chose a path of profound discretion, allowing his performances to speak for him while keeping his authentic heart behind closed doors to ensure his professional survival. The emotional endurance required to maintain this silence for over 50 years is a testament to Lane's resilience. While he was celebrated for his ability to survive on-screen shootouts and high-speed chases, his greatest act of endurance was navigating a society that celebrated his toughness while denying his full humanity. He lived through an era of radical change, yet for Lane the risk of transparency remained too great a price to pay. When he passed away in 2021 at the age of 83 due to chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, the industry honored him as a legendary stuntman and character actor. It was only in the quiet aftermath of his death that the reality of his hidden life began to be acknowledged. Tommy Lane's legacy is a poignant reminder of the sacrifices made by an entire generation of performers who gave the world their strength while keeping their vulnerability a closely guarded secret. Jimmy Daniels. Jimmy Daniels was the personification of mid-century elegance, a multifaceted performer who bridged the worlds of the American theater and the international cabaret circuit. Rising to prominence during the Harlem Renaissance, Daniels was a celebrated singer and actor known for his impeccable style and a voice that exuded a rare polished warmth. While his contemporaries were often confined to stereotypical roles, Daniels carved a path as a sophisticated entertainer, performing in elite venues from New York to Paris and London. His presence was a cornerstone of the legendary nightlife of the era, where he eventually became a renowned host and club owner. Yet despite his visibility in the most glamorous artistic circles, Daniels inhabited a world where his identity was an open secret, celebrated by his peers, but strictly omitted from the public record. For a Black entertainer in the 1930s and 40s, the intersection of race and sexuality was a minefield of professional and personal danger. Daniels maintained a long-term, intimate relationship with the world-renowned architect Philip Johnson, a partnership that lasted several years during a formative period of their lives. In the bohemian enclaves of Harlem and the artistic salons of Europe, Daniels lived with a degree of authenticity that was remarkably bold for the time. However, the mainstream media and the formal entertainment industry of the Jim Crow era had zero tolerance for openly gay Black men. To protect his career and the clubs he managed, Daniels practiced a masterclass in discretion. He allowed his artistry and his reputation as a gentleman of the stage to define his public identity, ensuring that his romantic life remained a private sanctuary protected from the harsh glare of societal judgment. The legacy of Jimmy Daniels is one of profound cultural cultivation. He was instrumental in creating spaces where Black artists could thrive and be seen as symbols of sophistication and intellect. He witnessed the world change from the heights of the Bronze Age through the struggles of the Civil Rights Movement, Yet he remained consistent in his refusal to let the public's curiosity dictate his personal narrative. When he passed away in 1984 at the age of 76, his obituary celebrated his contributions to cabaret and his role as a cultural gatekeeper. But his sexuality was largely left unmentioned in the mainstream press. Jimmy Daniels' life reflects the resilience of a generation of Black queer artists who used their elegance as a shield, proving that one could live a life of immense beauty and influence, even while keeping their true heart hidden from an unforgiving world. Moses Gunn. Moses Gunn was a titan of the American stage and screen, a man whose presence was defined by a profound, resonant voice and an almost Shakespearean intensity. Born in St. Louis, Missouri, Gunn co-founded the Negro Ensemble Company, an institution that became a beacon for Black talent in New York City. He was an actor of extraordinary range, equally at home portraying the fierce mob boss Bumpy Jonas in the Shaft films, as he was playing complex characters in The Iceman Cometh or Othello. Throughout his illustrious career, which included an Emmy nomination for Roots, Gunn was the embodiment of artistic discipline. However, beneath his professional exterior as a formidable patriarch of Black drama, he lived within the constraints of a silent, personal reality. For a Black actor of Gunn's generation, the public persona was a vital commodity. In the 1960s and 70s, the film and theater industries demanded that Black men represent a specific type of unshakable heteronormative strength. This was not just an aesthetic preference, but a political statement during the Civil Rights era. Gunn, acutely aware of his role as a representative of his race, felt that the admission of being gay would jeopardize his standing and the integrity of the artistic institutions he helped build. He maintained a life of extreme discretion, focusing his public energy entirely on the work. By cultivating a reputation for impeccable professionalism and a reserved private nature, he effectively silenced the whispers about his personal life before they could ever reach the headlines. The sacrifice of this hidden identity highlights the isolation that often accompanied Black stardom in the 20th century. Gunn poured his internal complexities into his roles, utilizing the stage as a space to express the depth of human emotion that he had to suppress in his own life. He navigated an industry that was often hostile to his race and even more unforgiving toward his sexuality, yet he never allowed his standards to slip. When he passed away in 1993 at the age of 64 due to complications from asthma, the tributes focused on his unmatched contribution to Black theater and his legacy as a character actor of the highest caliber. Only in later years did the full narrative of his life begin to emerge, revealing a man who carried the weight of his secret with the same dignity and stoicism he brought to every performance. Luther Vandross. Luther Vandross was the undisputed architect of contemporary R&B, a singer-songwriter and occasional actor whose silken tenor became the soundtrack for millions of love stories. With 8 Grammy Awards and over 35 million records sold, his influence on American music was seismic. While he appeared in television specials and films like The Meteor Man, his most profound performance was perhaps his public persona. For decades, Vandross was the primary messenger of romantic longing. Yet he lived a paradox. He was a man who articulated the nuances of intimacy for the world while maintaining a fortress of solitude around his own heart. As a Black male superstar in an era that demanded hypermasculinity, the risk of being his authentic self was a price he felt he could never afford. The intersection of Black church culture, the music industry, and the expectations of a female-dominated fan base created a rigid environment for Vandross. He was acutely aware that the R&B genre, and by extension the few acting roles available to him, relied heavily on the image of the ideal suitor. To come out as a gay man in the 1980s or 90s would have been, in his estimation, a career death sentence. He feared that public knowledge of his sexuality would not only alienate his audience, but would also weaponize his identity against him in a judgmental industry. Consequently, Vandross became a master of the polite pivot, skillfully dodging questions about marriage and the right woman in every interview, choosing instead to let his music serve as the only bridge between his soul and his fans. The psychological burden of this open secret was heavy. Friends later recalled the immense loneliness Vandross suffered, often substituting the lack of personal transparency with a relentless work ethic and an obsession with perfection. He poured his unrequited desires and his need for connection into masterpieces like A House Is Not a Home and Dance with My Father. When he suffered a debilitating stroke in 2003 and subsequently passed away in 2005 at the age of 54, the world mourned a legend of love who ironically died without ever publicly acknowledging his own truth. It was only posthumously through the testimonies of close friends like Patti LaBelle that the reality of his struggle became part of his public narrative. Luther Vandross's legacy remains a poignant reminder of the brilliant artistry that can emerge from the shadows of silence. Raymond St. Jacques. Raymond St. Jacques was a monumental figure in the history of American media, an actor and director who shattered the glass ceiling of primetime television. With his distinguished gravelly voice and an aura of intellectual command, St. Jacques became a household name, as Simon Blake on the long-running Western series Rawhide, making him the first black actor to hold a regular starring role in a major television drama. His career spanned from the Shakespearean stage to the gritty heights of the blaxploitation era, where he headlined classics like Cotton Comes to Harlem. In every role, he projected an image of dignified, unshakable masculinity, a tough guy persona that was essential for navigating the racial barriers of mid-20th century Hollywood. Yet this very image became the gilded cage that kept his authentic identity as a gay man locked away from the public eye. For a black actor in the 1960s and 70s, the masculine brand was not just a stylistic choice, it was a matter of professional survival. St. Jacques operated in a Hollywood that was intensely judgmental, in an era where the black community relied on its stars to project symbols of traditional strength and patriarchal stability. He was acutely aware that disclosing his sexuality would not only derail his career, but could also be perceived as a betrayal of the community he fought so hard to represent. Consequently, he became an architect of discretion. He cultivated an image of a refined private bachelor, ensuring that his social life remained separate from the Hollywood machine. By maintaining this impenetrable wall of privacy, he protected his platform to continue opening doors for future generations of black performers. The emotional toll of this lifelong performance of heteronormativity was a silent burden that St. Jacques carried with immense grace. He utilized the stage and screen to channel his internal complexities, often imbuing his characters with a brooding depth that suggested a wealth of unspoken experience. Despite the whispers within the inner circles of the industry, he never granted the public access to his personal heart, choosing instead to be remembered solely for his artistic contributions. When he passed away in 1990 at the age of 60 due to complications from lymphoma, his obituary celebrated him as a trailblazing actor and a fierce advocate for racial justice in the arts. Only in the decades since his death has the full scope of his journey emerged, revealing a man who mastered the art of survival in an unforgiving world, sacrificing his personal transparency to secure his place as a pioneer. Howard Rollins. Howard Rollins was a performer of staggering natural talent, a man whose screen presence was so commanding that he achieved Oscar and Golden Globe nominations for his very first major film role as Coalhouse Walker Jr. in the 1981 masterpiece, Ragtime. With his striking features and an ability to convey a quiet, simmering intensity, Rollins became a symbol of black intellectual strength and poise. He further solidified his status as a television icon by starring as Virgil Tibbs in the hit series In the Heat of the Night. To the outside world, he was the definitive leading man, handsome, authoritative, and profoundly capable. However, this public image was a heavy mantle to wear for a man who lived with the secret of his sexuality in an era that offered no refuge for a black gay leading man. For Rollins, the pressure of maintaining a heteronormative superstar persona was compounded by a relentless struggle with personal demons, including substance abuse and legal challenges. During the 1980s and early 90s, Hollywood's tolerance for anything outside the macho archetype was non-existent, particularly for black actors who were already viewed through a lens of extreme scrutiny. Rollins understood that coming out would not only end his career, but would also give his detractors more ammunition to dismiss his immense talent. He chose a life of guarded isolation, often retreating into himself to avoid the prying eyes of the tabloids. His tough guy role on television served as both a career lifeline and a protective mask, in allowing him to embody a traditional hero while his authentic self remained a shadow in the wings. The tragedy of Howard Rollins' life lies in the collision between his brilliant artistry and the unforgiving society he inhabited. He poured his internal turmoil into his characters, giving them a haunting vulnerability that resonated deeply with audiences. Despite his struggles, he remained a dedicated craftsman until the very end. When he passed away in 1996 at the young age of 46 from complications related to AIDS, the news sent shockwaves through the industry. His death forced a quiet realization of the immense burden he had carried alone. Howard Rollins was a man who gave everything to his audience, providing a vision of dignity and strength while suffering the silent agony of a life half lived in the dark. His legacy is a testament to the staggering cost of fame in an era where authenticity was the ultimate risk. Paul Winfield. Paul Winfield was one of the most intellectually formidable actors of his generation, a performer who brought a rare poetic sensitivity to every role he inhabited. His portrayal of a sharecropper in the 1972 film Sounder not only earned him an Academy Award nomination, but also redefined the portrayal of Black fatherhood on the American screen. Winfield possessed a unique ability to command the screen with a mixture of raw strength and quiet vulnerability, leading to a prolific career that spanned Shakespearean theater sci-fi classics like Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan and an Emmy-winning performance in Picket Fences. Yet for all his public visibility, Winfield lived behind an invisible curtain, carefully shielding a domestic life that was fundamentally at odds with Hollywood's rigid expectations of its black male stars. For decades, Winfield shared his life with his partner, set designer Charles Gillen Jr., in a relationship characterized by deep devotion and absolute discretion. In an era where a black leading man was expected to be the ultimate symbol of traditional masculinity, Winfield understood that the revelation of his homosexuality would likely mean professional annihilation. He navigated Hollywood with a masterclass in poise, choosing to let his immense talent be the sole focus of public conversation. While he was out to a close-knit circle of friends and colleagues, he maintained a strict separation between his personal sanctuary and the red carpets of the industry. This silence was a calculated survival strategy, a way to preserve his ability to tell profound stories without his identity becoming a distraction or a target for a judgmental public. The longevity of Winfield's career is a testament to his resilience and his refusal to be defined by the shadows. He channeled the complexities of his hidden life into his craft, imbuing his characters with a profound humanity that resonated across racial and social boundaries. Even as he faced health challenges and the loss of his partner in the late 90s, he remained a pillar of professionalism and grace. When he passed away in 2004 at the age of 64 from a heart attack, the world mourned a legendary actor whose dignity was as undeniable as his talent. It was only after his death that the full extent of his long-term partnership became widely acknowledged. Paul Winfield's legacy is that of a man who conquered the heights of his profession while holding on to the truth of his heart, proving that one can be both a powerful icon and a guardian of a private soul. These stories remind us that Hollywood's brightest lights often cast the longest shadows. For these 11 icons, the price of fame was the suppression of their true selves, forcing a tragic choice between artistic success and personal authenticity. Here at Black Excellence Legends, we honor their immense contributions while acknowledging the heavy silence they carried to their graves. However, this history raises a challenging question for us today. Should we celebrate their silence as a heroic sacrifice for their careers, or mourn it as a systemic failure that robbed them of their humanity? Share your thoughts below. Your voice matters in this conversation.